Governments are keen to tell us how much they care about climate change and the kind of measures they're putting in place to attack this issue that they apparently care so much about. But does what they say and what they do tally up? Let's have a look at what's going on. The UK was one of the first countries in the world to set a goal of reaching net zero emissions by 2050. But Boris Johnson has failed to set out a plan for the UK to reach that target. Also, the UK gives 10.5 billion a year to support fossil fuels in the UK. Craig Bennett from Friends of the Earth said, "It's astonishing that the UK government is still throwing taxpayers' money at some of the world's largest oil and gas companies." G20 nations have funneled 3.3 trillion into fossil fuel subsidies since 2015. What interests me about this is the idea that fossil fuels and traditional systems of energy are presented as a viable business model. Whether you believe that they are responsible for the degradation and decimation of the earth or not, you have to see that the way that they're presented is profitable and necessary. If something is held up by subsidy, then that's welfare. And I'd rather that welfare went to helping ordinary people rather than propping up broken industries and companies that can't operate by the rules that they claim are the rules that we should all live by. You're poor, are you? Homeless, are you? Can't cope? Well, got to cope in capitalism. American dream. That's you got to cope on your own house. You should then. If you can't cope without subsidies, your business model doesn't work. You know, my business model has to work on a certain basis. I bet your business model has to work on a certain basis. The G20 agreed in 2009 to phase out fossil fuel subsidies, but no binding date was set. Why is it so difficult to bring these policies to bear? Well, perhaps because of the ongoing lobbying. For example, in the UK, £400,000 was donated to the governing UK party over the last year. And in spite of making these claims about a new, green, conscientious model, is allowing drilling in the North Sea despite a government pledge to tackle carbon emissions as long as they pass a climate compatibility test. So they will allow drilling in the North Sea as long as you can pass a climate compatibility test. I don't feel that that test is going to be reliable or any more difficult than passing the cycling proficiency test. What have you got to do to pass a climate compatibility test? Wear a t-shirt with a tree on it.
This government is delivering a fantastic agenda in tackling climate change. We lead the world in going for a zero carbon approach.
I suppose now, like when I sort of see parliamentary process or governmental stuff that's taking place now, like I feel like I'm watching a mad play or something. It doesn't seem real, and the reason is because it isn't real. It is a form of theatre. On the micro daily level, the stuff that they say doesn't really mean anything, and then on a macro level you can see that in spite of changes between administrations wherever you are in the world, nothing really alters. The interests of powerful individuals and institutions continue to be prioritised over the needs of ordinary people and indeed the environment. And this is just another example of that corruption. Claims for zero emissions will be made because it's sort of fashionable, but billions of dollars in subsidies will be provided to companies that are at odds with the promises that are being made publicly.
The Floods Minister for England surveys yet more newly enhanced flood defences.
Today we are announcing our £860 million first tranche of our huge commitment to spending £5.2 billion on flood defences and flood protection.
It's mad, isn't it? And it's just accepted that there's going to be floods and that. It's going to be floods. Oh, should we make some changes? Yeah, I'm going to build a wall on that, keep the flood out.
This is all about mitigating the impact of climate change, but is your government acting rapidly enough to deal with the root causes of the problems here, to decarbonise, to hit those net zero targets? Because the Climate Change Committee doesn't think you are.
I like watching the flooding minister sort of chewing through that. Oh no, this is a question I don't really know how to answer. Bollocks, why don't I even come here? I don't want to be a flooding minister. I was a little girl growing up, wanted to get in politics, do things that meant something. Now I've just got to stand here in front of a bridge and some blokes in high-vis jackets and make up a lie in response to this question. Well, let's do it then.
Yeah, so we're responding to all of those comments made by the Climate Change Committee, and indeed actually a great deal has happened since they published that report.
Also, it's quite windy actually. We should probably set up some wind farms.
But this government is doing more than almost any other country to commit to this new future that we've got to deal with.
The old new future requires billions of pounds worth of subsidies to failing industries.
Last week, this programme revealed one of America's biggest oil companies trying to water down US climate action.
Did we aggressively fight against some of the science? Yes.
I do aggressively fight against science. Yeah, get the hell out you are, if you fucking...
Greenpeace UK's investigative unit revealed that Exxon Mobil isn't just lobbying here on Capitol Hill, it's also central to efforts to pressurise the British government to reposition gas as a vital part of the solution to tackling climate change, even though all the science tells us the opposite is true.
These kind of corporations now might seem like sort of antiquated little darlings from yesteryear in the face of Google and Apple and the behemoths of Silicon Valley, but it seems, at least around this issue, that they wield incredible power. And I suppose for me, what is significant here is people's willingness to cling on to power and profit in the face of all odds, and their ability to do that through government relationships, ongoing lobbying, and deceptive rhetoric around solutions being pursued that plainly aren't being followed at all.
Freedom of information requests obtained by Greenpeace Unearth reveal that it was in Houston last year that the UK government was being lobbied over its presidency of the upcoming Global Climate Summit. Over dinner, Exxon Mobil, Shell, BP, Chevron and Equinor met with the then UK Trade Minister Conor Burns.
Why is all this happening at a dinner anyway? If you're going to have these crony lobbying conversations, have them in a bland, open plan, awful glass and steel office. Don't have it while being served wine and whipping a plate lid off. Ta-da! Is this my main course? Yeah, it's £500,000.
To press for the UK to be more lenient about the role of gas. The Houston consulate told officials in London, these companies want to work with the UK, but they need support from governments like ours so they can be seen as a vital part of the solution to future energy provision.
Could you support us in being seen as part of the solution of energy provision? That's how it works, isn't it? It's so sort of coded and illicit and full of like innuendo. Would you mind awfully if we were seen as part of the solution? Why is it that it's not plain conversation about resources, consequences of particular types of energy, the nature of government and power? The whole thing is farcical and theatrical, and I think that's what creates a sort of apathy, distrust and disconnection around politics. Oh, there's nothing we can do. What's the point anyway? Well, I suppose with this particular issue, particularly if you're in the UK, you can sign a petition to ensure that organisations, institutions, corporations that continue to pollute are forced to pay for those emissions. The link's in the description if you want to click it.
Shell said, we make no apology for talking to policymakers and regulators around the world about climate change and how to tackle it. Business must be part of the solution.
In a sense, that isn't part of the solution though, is it? And I suppose this continual gripping to power, gripping to these old ideas when they're evidently defunct, is part of what's obviously part of what's preventing us progressing in a meaningful direction. What hope is there for democracy? What hope is there for real change when really power is exchanged and enforced at a dinner?
The Foreign Office in London said the dinner in Houston was a routine engagement.
It's a routine engagement. We're always having dinners. We're bored of them. It's a routine.
Focused on the importance of the transition to a clean energy future. We were not lobbied.
Well, there you go. Further evidence that politics doesn't take place at polling booths, doesn't involve you. It's something that takes place at dinners between politicians and lobbyists and powerful transnational corporations, regardless of whether or not it has a negative impact on you and costs you money because of the subsidies required to prop up those businesses. Lies, corruption, deception, and a lovely dinner. That's politics these days. If you want to ensure that these companies have to pay money for polluting rather than continuing to receive subsidies from you, then you can click on the link in the description and sign that petition. If you enjoyed this video, please comment below, or if you didn't enjoy it, you can comment below and tell us about whatever you want. I'm engaged in a dialogue with you. I've already decided that I love you. Every week, remember, I do a podcast, Under the Skin, on Luminary. You can get that on Apple, and I do a guided meditation, Above the Noise, there as well. If you want to sign up for my mailing list, go russellbrand.com and sign up for that now. And if you enjoyed this video, you might also like this one. And if you need to meditate now or unwind and learn about well-being, have a look at this one and subscribe to my side channel as well. Thank you.